well, the rebels, right? And they're not against teachers. They're not against all teachers because they're they're just more for themselves. Of course, teachers will see it as being against teachers, but it's not really against teachers. They're just more for themselves. They're more interested in their way of doing things than they are in the teacher's way of doing things. They obviously don't think the teachers are stupid, but they've obviously got other opinions and other perspectives. So, and that is probably, that might or might not be something created at school. It might be something they've picked up from feeling resentment. It might be something they've picked up from other students. It might be something they've picked up from their parents. There's a whole load of different reasons why it might exist, and there's really not much that can be done with that because that's the student has already made their decision there. It can only be respected and supported in the sense that, well, I hope you do okay, right? Because there's no point. There's an old saying in English. There's no point flogging a dead horse, which means there's no point trying to get a dead horse to move, because it's dead. You just have to respect the fact that it's dead and live with that element. So I think that students need to feel personally identified with, and from my own experience in schools, the teachers who had the best relationships with the students were the teachers who were able to make the students feel that they had been personally identified with. The students who failed, the teachers who were successful were where the students felt they each had a personal relationship with the teacher or identified with the teacher in some way, and that the teacher understood them and their needs. I think that a lot of students have ingrained, they've burned into their brain this idea they have to fight with authority for everything. But when they understand that they're understood, which is objective reflection, which is the student says, I want a 2 for this, which, one being the best mark or whatever. I want a 2 for this, and you say, well, do you really feel like you deserve a 2? I really feel like I deserve a 2. Well, give me the examples again that are examples of 2. Well, yeah, you can go shopping and buy all the ingredients for your cooking. You can go shopping and you can prepare everything. But if the final cake is not baked in the right way, then it's not going to taste very nice. And you may well have bought all the right ingredients and done everything correctly, but unfortunately the final result is not equal to all of the other elements together. This is something that happens in life. Does this surprise you? I'm talking to the student. Yeah, does this surprise you? Have you never cooked anything before? Did you realize that sometimes the end result is not as good as what we want it to be? I think one of the differences between my approach and your approach is that I'm very comfortable handling the difficult questions, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's years of getting difficult questions from students. Maybe I'm really not sure why that is, but I know that if I'm in a situation where I have to immediately go into defensive mode, I can't breathe and think rationally about what is happening, because when you have logic, the key element to logic is that basically nobody can do you any harm. When you have logic, nobody can do you any harm because you're always able, through the examples that we looked at before of the logical fallacies, always able to realize when something is not true or not real. So the and the analogy is important, like the example I gave about cooking. Two of my most common examples are with cooking and football. Because almost everybody has some experience in their life of football, including girls,
Mm-hmm.
and almost everybody has some experience in their life of cooking. And so I try to relate, because education is such a weird abstract experience for students, because they're in the middle of everything being turned around and round and round and round and round and round, and it's really difficult for them to forget that there are elements of education that relate to the real world. If students don't have their experience related to them in a way that they can practically understand, it doesn't mean anything. And education, like you say the word education, it's kind of so abstract, it doesn't really mean anything. Everybody needs an education. What does that mean? It's not very practical. Because it's just such an abstract statement. It's like saying everybody should eat. Yeah, but if some people eat only hamburgers and drink only Coca-Cola, they're not going to be very healthy. So the whole concept of education is a pretty abstract experience for the students. Everything needs to be related to them in a way that they understand. And in order to relate it to them in a way that they understand, it's necessary to understand what they understand. So an approach that I would have to doing this would be the student says, well, let's take a crazy example. Why do we have to do these tests? I would say, well, what do you do when you're not at school? And that might be like a very strange way to respond, but what I'm doing is I'm framing the conversation in an area that I'm comfortable with. I'm framing it with what I know, or I'm trying to explore what the student knows. So what I know is that I don't know a lot about students' life, so I'm going to ask the student, okay, so you're asking about why tests are important. I'm like, okay, what do you do when you're not at school?